And just to review that last bit, the primary protein structure is the unique amino acid sequence, or chain, if you will, of any particular protein. As it's being made, initially it's a polypeptide. Okay? So, the amino acid sequence, the primary amino acid sequence of a polypeptide will determine ultimately its three-dimensional structure, or shape, 3D here. So primary structure leads to what's called secondary, and then tertiary structure, but the final three-dimensional structure of a protein, and that means the protein has its appropriate structure, and then the protein will do its appropriate function that's allowed by the structure. So the structure and function fit together. Or the structure determines the function is based on the structure. So a protein's three-dimensional structure enables a molecule to be able to do whatever specific job it's going to do. With the hemoglobin molecule, if you remember this one, it's a unique protein because it's made up of 4 different polypeptide chain subunits. They're color-coded here. Many proteins are made up of only a single polypeptide chain. Hemoglobin is a unique one that's made up of 4. And its unique structure of the 4 polypeptide chains allows the single entire hemoglobin molecule to function in oxygen transportation by latching onto 4 different or separate oxygen molecules. Okay. So a change in the amino acid sequence can affect the protein's function because it can affect the shape. So a substitution, for example, of just one amino acid in the hemoglobin molecule, hemoglobin polypeptide chain, that will lead to the entire hemoglobin molecule, just one incorrect amino acid that can be caused by, say, mutation, will cause the human sickle cell disease, which is an inherited blood disorder. So just one amino acid mistake can cause the hemoglobin molecule to be misshapen, and that leads to a misshapen sickle cell red blood cell that does not carry the same amount of oxygen and can cause numerous health problems in the humans. Okay. So other mistakes that are problematic, misfolded, misshapen proteins are associated with lots of disease, including some severe nervous symptom disorders, such as mad cow disease and Kuru. The basic problem is with mad cow disease, technically bovine, spongiform, encephalopathy. If the incorrect food gets into the cow dietary feed, it can cause mad cow disease. And the reason that this even pops up in agriculture is because when they do slaughter cattle, beef for meat and such things, parts of the animal that are not used for human consumption had at one point been added into food as a protein supplement to feed back to cows. So what agriculture was doing was feeding cows beef from other cows and causing them to eat meat, which they're not evolved to do. They're plant eaters, and that allowed for the transfer of a protein that was misshapen, something called the prion, into other cows, causing mad cow disease. In humans, this type of consumption of the same species eating itself, think of cannibalism, caused a similar type of condition in some tribes that, like the Kuru, or Kuru is the disease, that cause problems in this particular tribe, or in some particular tribes that practice cannibalism. So the protein shape is very sensitive, or can be very sensitive to swings or changes in temperature, acidity, pH, or some other factors that can cause proteins to lose its shape. So high fevers in children and adults, high temperature, can cause proteins to lose their shape and they won't function as well as they normally would. And in humans, a temperature of like 105 degrees, especially in children, can cause enough of the proteins to lose their shape and then not function the way they're supposed to lead to cell and tissue damage and organ system damage, and ultimately to death is a possibility with high temperatures. And it's because of the loss of the protein's natural shape, and then that means the protein's function is slowed down or totally stopped. Okay, let's move on to the nucleic acids. So nucleic acids store information and provide the instructions for building proteins. So the two nucleic acids are DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA, which is just ribonucleic acid. And under normal conditions, DNA has this twisted double helix structure versus ribonucleic acid is just a single strand, and often it forms a helix as well. So it's kind of like half of the DNA molecule is the overall structural shape of the RNA molecule. So there are two types again, DNA and RNA. DNA is the genetic storage information molecule found in our nucleuses. Nuclei is plural. And then RNA is the single-stranded molecule. And basically in many animals, RNA is the copy of the genetic material on our DNA molecules. So a gene that has the information for producing, say, a protein, the gene copy becomes the RNA molecule, or better said, the RNA molecule is a copy of a particular gene. And then the RNA molecule, since it's a copy of a gene, it's just a copy of information. Because again, DNA is an informational molecule, just the way RNA is. Then the RNA molecule, its information is translated into a particular protein, meaning the RNA molecule has the information to guide the linking of the different amino acids together to form a particular protein. So the genetic material for humans and many other organisms is inherited from our parents, and it consists of molecules of DNA. So DNA is found in our cells, in our types of cells, in our nuclei, because we are eukaryotic organisms. And the DNA is in long, long fibers that are called chromosomes. In humans, we have 6 chromosomes, because we're fairly large and complex. Bacteria, for example, only have 1 chromosome. So the entire DNA molecule is broken up into informational units that are called genes. So a gene is a section of DNA, and that genetic information, that gene, is the information to produce a particular protein. So a gene is a unit of inheritance because genes are on chromosomes, the DNA molecule, or the DNA molecule, the chromosomes have genes, and we inherit them from our parents. So a gene is a section of the DNA that has the information to program, to direct the unique sequence of amino acids to form a particular polypeptide that will then form a unique particular protein. And then the protein is the final gene product. So nucleic acids, like proteins and carbohydrates before, are polymers made up of unique monomers that are called nucleotides. And here's a nucleotide right here. Don't worry about knowing the specific structure, but just know that each nucleotide, and there's 4 different types of nucleotides, has 3 basic parts. 5-carbon sugar, here in blue, a phosphate, which has a phosphate and this phosphorus molecule, and 4 oxygen atoms linked together, here in color-coded in yellow, and then the nitrogen-containing base over here with some nitrogen. So each nucleotide has these 3 components. The only thing that's variable between the different nucleotides is the specific nitrogenous base. It's either thymine, abbreviated T, adenine, abbreviated G, cytosine C, and glycine G. So just know the initials, A, G, C, or T. Adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. Okay, A, G, T, and C. So those are the only variable parts of any particular nucleotide, and there's only 4 different ones. Okay, so the nucleotide monomers link together with covalent bonds to form a long polynucleotide, and then they link together to form a double helix. So 1/2 of a DNA molecule is one single strand of DNA. So single-stranded DNA. They form, notice the little dotted lines, they're linked together by relatively weak hydrogen bonds, the little dotted lines here, between the bases. But there's so many of them that it forms a relatively strong structure. The sugar phosphate backbone is indicated by the blue and the yellow. Okay? So the sugar of one nucleotide and the phosphate of the next form the sugar phosphate backbone, and they are linked together with covalent bonds. So the bases, they link off of the sugar phosphate backbone, and they kind of orient towards the center of this, what's called the double helix. And then the bases bind with other complementary bases via hydrogen bonding. And the binding is called complementary in the sense that the G always binds with C, and the T always binds with A. Notice A and T, G and C, A and T, A and T, T and A. Okay? So that unique and specific binding of the bases is referred to as complementary base pair or base binding within the double helix of a DNA molecule. And again, 2 strands coiled together to form this unique double helix molecule of the DNA molecule. The bases along one DNA single strand form hydrogen bonds with the bases of the complementary strand. And that's what holds it together. A only pairs with T, or T only pairs with A. G only pairs with C, or C only pairs with G. So those are the nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. Similarities between the two, they're long polymers of unique nucleotides made of nucleotides. 3 differences between DNA and RNA. The RNA sugar is ribose versus deoxyribose in DNA. And then RNA has the base uracil as opposed to the base thymine, which is found in DNA. So DNA, notice it has this thymine base. RNA has this uracil base. Both of them share or have the cytosine, guanine, and adenine base. And then lastly, RNA is single-stranded versus DNA is normally double-stranded, forming double-stranded helix. And that is it for this chapter.